July 19, 1989, dawned like any other day. United Airlines Flight 232, a wide-body McDonnell Douglas DC-10, stood ready at the gate. The passengers boarded, settling into their seats. The flight crew, led by Captain Al Haynes, completed their pre-flight checks. With a gentle liftoff, the plane ascended through the clouds, leaving Denver behind. The first leg of the flight from Denver to Chicago proceeded without incident. High above Iowa at 37,000 feet, a deafening explosion shattered the serenity. Oxygen masks dropped as the cabin depressurized. Captain Haynes struggled to control the aircraft, which was now vibrating uncontrollably. The explosion had originated in the number 2 engine. Debris had severed all 3 hydraulic lines that controlled the aircraft's rudder, ailerons, and elevators. Without hydraulics, the DC-10 was virtually uncontrollable.
Sioux City, this is United 232. We had an explosion. We lost number 2 engine. We lost all hydraulics.
Inside the cockpit, the initial shock gave way to a chilling reality. Captain Haynes, a veteran pilot, had never encountered such a catastrophic failure. The loss of hydraulic pressure meant they had lost control of the aircraft's primary control surfaces. The DC-10, once a symbol of modern aviation, was now a lumbering giant, drifting precariously through the sky. The cockpit was filled with the hiss of escaping oxygen and the frantic beeping of warning alarms. As the chilling reality of their situation sunk in, a faint glimmer of hope emerged. Dennis Fitch, a seasoned DC-10 flight instructor, was a passenger on board. Fitch made his way to the cockpit and offered his assistance. Together, they huddled over the flight controls, their collective experience converging in a desperate attempt to regain control. By delicately manipulating the engine power levers, they could potentially influence the aircraft's roll and yaw. The crew couldn't escape the weight of the 296 lives entrusted to them.
We need to stay focused. Every move we make here is critical.
Captain Haynes became the anchor of the crew, his voice steady as he communicated with air traffic control.
Sioux City, this is United 232. We are experiencing a complete hydraulic failure. We'll need emergency services on standby.
First Officer Records and Denny Fitch provided vital support, their focus never wavering from the task at hand. High above Iowa, Flight 232 became a high-wire act, a desperate dance with gravity and fate. The innovative technique of using differential engine thrust to control the plane was fraught with challenges. Each adjustment of the throttles sent ripples through the plane, causing it to shudder and sway. Inside the cabin, the passengers were acutely aware of their perilous situation. The flight attendants worked tirelessly to maintain calm amidst the chaos. As the crew wrestled with their crippled aircraft, news of their plight spread. Air traffic controllers cleared airspace and scrambled emergency services. Inside the cockpit, whispers of hope were tempered by the ever-present echoes of fear. The crew knew that their unconventional flying skills would be put to the ultimate test during the landing. They had come too far, fought too hard to give up now. As Flight 232 approached Sioux Gateway Airport, the city held its breath. Emergency responders raced to their positions, their every movement a testament to their training and dedication. Fire trucks, ambulances, and police cars lined the runway, their flashing lights painting a surreal tableau. The sight of the crippled DC-10 sent shivers down the spines of those who watched from the ground. The city of Sioux City, and indeed the world, held its breath, united in a silent prayer for the souls on board. The tension in the cockpit was palpable. Captain Haynes maintained a steady dialogue with the air traffic controllers. The pilots fought against the wind, the turbulence, and the unforgiving laws of physics. Through the cockpit windows, the approaching runway appeared as a narrow strip of concrete. They had chosen runway 22, hoping that the extra length would provide a margin of error. Time seemed to distort as Flight 232 descended toward the runway. Inside the cabin, the passengers braced themselves for impact. The flight attendants moved through the cabin, ensuring that everyone was secured in their seats. The roar of the engines, the shuddering of the airframe, the frantic beeping of warning alarms, all these sounds coalesced into a terrifying symphony. In that moment, as the ground rushed up to meet them, time seemed to stand still. Outside the confines of the stricken aircraft, the city of Sioux City braced for impact. Emergency responders, their faces etched with determination, stood ready, eyes fixed on the descending aircraft. The air crackled with radio transmissions, voices betraying the urgency. News helicopters captured the harrowing descent of Flight 232. The sight of the crippled DC-10 sent chills down the spines of those watching. Ambulances stood ready, a stark reminder of the human cost. Fire trucks lined the runway, crews prepared for the inferno. As Flight 232 touched down, Sioux City embraced the survivors and the fallen. The final moments of Flight 232's descent unfolded with a terrifying inevitability.
Brace for impact.
Inside the cabin, passengers and crew alike adopted the crash position, their bodies tense, their minds racing with a mixture of fear and resignation. The DC-10, its trajectory dictated by forces beyond the crew's control, slammed into the ground with a deafening roar, its fuselage shuddering violently as it skidded across the runway. The impact ripped through the aircraft, tearing metal and composite materials like paper, sending a shockwave through the cabin that tossed passengers against their restraints with bone-jarring force. The world outside that window dissolved into a chaotic blur of brown earth and green foliage, punctuated by flashes of blinding light as the aircraft's electrical systems short-circuited. The smell of jet fuel, acrid and overpowering, filled the cabin, mingling with the dust and debris that swirled through the air. The force of the impact ripped the DC-10 apart, its once sleek fuselage contorting into a grotesque parody of its former self. The tail section, where the catastrophic chain of events had begun, snapped off entirely, tumbling end over end across the airfield. The wings, their structural integrity compromised, folded inward, their fuel tanks erupting in a fiery inferno that quickly engulfed the wreckage. In the immediate aftermath of the crash, a disorienting silence descended upon the wreckage of Flight 232. The roar of the engines was replaced by the crackling of flames and the groans of the dying aircraft. Inside the shattered fuselage, passengers and crew struggled to free themselves from the twisted wreckage. The injured cried out in pain, their pleas for help muffled by the hissing of escaping oxygen and the roar of the flames. Those who were able, their faces streaked with blood and soot, stumbled through the debris-strewn aisle. Amidst this chaos, acts of extraordinary heroism began to emerge. Flight attendants, despite their own injuries, guided disoriented passengers towards emergency exits. The sound of approaching sirens pierced the smoky haze that enveloped the crash site, a symphony of urgency and hope that signaled the arrival of help. Emergency responders, their faces grim but determined, raced towards the burning wreckage of Flight 232, their every movement a testament to their training and their unwavering commitment to saving lives. Fire trucks, their lights flashing and sirens blaring, charged across the airfield, their crews battling through thick smoke and intense heat to reach the inferno. Water cannons roared to life, unleashing torrents of water and foam in a desperate attempt to extinguish the flames that raged around the shattered aircraft. Ambulances, their interiors gleaming with medical equipment, formed a makeshift triage center near the wreckage, their crews working tirelessly to assess the injured and transport them to nearby hospitals. Doctors and nurses, their faces etched with a mixture of compassion and grim determination, worked feverishly to stabilize the injured, their every action a race against time. The air crackled with the static of radio transmissions as first responders coordinated their efforts, their voices calm and professional amidst the chaos. Helicopters, their rotors churning the smoky air, ferried the most critically injured to trauma centers in nearby cities, their presence a beacon of hope for those whose lives hung in the balance. As the smoke cleared and the flames subsided, the true extent of the disaster became horrifyingly clear. The wreckage of Flight 232, once a symbol of modern engineering and human ingenuity, lay scattered across the airfield, a twisted monument to the capricious nature of fate. Yet, amidst the devastation, stories of survival and heroism began to emerge, tales of courage and compassion that illuminated the darkest corners of that tragic day. Of the 296 souls on board Flight 232, 185 miraculously survived the crash, a testament to the skill of the pilots, the bravery of the first responders, and the indomitable spirit of the human will to live. There were stories of flight attendants who, despite their own injuries, continued to help passengers evacuate the burning wreckage. Stories of strangers who, united by their shared peril, risked their lives to free those trapped beneath the debris. Stories of parents who shielded their children from harm with their own bodies, their love a shield against the chaos that raged around them. The miracle of survival, however, was tempered by the profound grief of loss. 111 souls perished in the crash of Flight 232, their lives cut short, their dreams extinguished in a fiery instant. Their absence left a void in the hearts of their loved ones, a wound that time could never fully heal. The crash of Flight 232 sent shockwaves through the aviation industry and the heart of the nation. The images of the shattered aircraft and frantic rescue efforts were broadcast into homes across the country, leaving an indelible mark on the collective consciousness. The world watched in awe and horror as the story of Flight 232 unfolded, captivated by the bravery of the crew and the resilience of the survivors. The crash served as a stark reminder of the fragility of life. Amidst the devastation and loss, stories of extraordinary courage and compassion emerged from the wreckage of Flight 232, stories that illuminated the best of humanity in the face of unimaginable adversity. There were tales of selflessness and sacrifice, of ordinary people performing extraordinary acts of bravery, putting the needs of others before their own safety. One such story involved a young woman named Jan Brown, a flight attendant on Flight 232 who, despite suffering a broken leg and other injuries, continued to help passengers evacuate the burning aircraft. Ignoring her own pain and fear, Jan guided disoriented and injured passengers to safety, her calm demeanor and reassuring words a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Another story that captured the hearts of the nation was that of firefighter Lieutenant Mike O'Halloran, who, upon arriving at the crash site, was confronted with a scene of unimaginable devastation. Undeterred by the heat, smoke, and the risk of further explosions, Lieutenant O'Halloran and his team charged into the inferno, their only thought the rescue of those trapped inside the burning wreckage. It was Lieutenant O'Halloran who discovered 4-year-old Spencer Bailey, still strapped in his seat, alive but unconscious amidst the twisted metal and burning debris. Spencer's mother sadly had not survived the crash, but Lieutenant O'Halloran's quick thinking and heroic actions had given the young boy a second chance at life. The crash of Flight 232 had a profound impact on the city of Sioux City, Iowa. What had begun as a day like any other quickly transformed into a day etched in the city's memory, a day that tested the limits of its resources and the spirit of its people. In the face of tragedy, the community of Sioux City responded with an outpouring of support and compassion that transcended the boundaries of city limits and touched the hearts of people around the world. Hospitals, overwhelmed by the influx of injured, were inundated with offers of assistance from medical professionals and volunteers alike. Hotels and motels opened their doors to displaced travelers and families of victims, providing shelter and comfort during a time of unimaginable stress and uncertainty. Restaurants donated food and beverages to first responders and volunteers, fueling their efforts as they worked tirelessly to care for the injured and search for survivors. The crash of Flight 232 had tested the limits of Sioux City's resources, but it had also revealed the boundless compassion and resilience of its people. In the face of tragedy, the community had come together as one, united in their grief and their determination to support those in need. The crash of Flight 232 sent shockwaves throughout the aviation world. It wasn't just the loss of life that shook the industry, it was the realization that a seemingly invincible machine could be brought down by a tiny flaw. A microscopic crack in a titanium fan disc caused the catastrophic failure. The investigation led to significant changes in aviation safety regulations. The FAA mandated more rigorous inspection protocols and new technologies. The legacy of Flight 232 extends far beyond technical advancements. It serves as a powerful reminder of courage, resilience, and compassion.